Announcements. So first, I want to thank everybody who showed up to the public hearing. I can't quite believe it, but we managed to get everybody in who wanted to speak. And I'm going to just a big shout out to Tyler for that. The timekeeping was not easy. And I really appreciate your work on that. We had something like 77 emails, which have been shared with all the committee members and all of the select board members. And I read every single one, as I'm sure the other committee members have as well. Just in general, so for those who don't know, today we will be making a final kind of vote on a slate that we recommend to the select board. And I want to be very clear, this is our recommendation. In the end, the select board on Tuesday will meet and discuss our recommendation. I'm sure they'll still make some changes and then vote on the final slate on Tuesday. Then what I propose to the committee is we take a break for the rest of April and we convene again the first Friday in May to just have a couple of meetings to talk about how we can improve the if that works. I see Brian's taking his calendar out. We can discuss it offline too, Brian, if it doesn't work. I haven't even checked my calendar, to be frank. I'm making suggestions I don't even know if I can comply with. It looks like it would be May 6th. And actually works for me. So we'll discuss that offline and we'll be sure to post it. And we'll have a couple of meetings as a committee just to make sure we learn from the process. We'll have opportunities for the public to give us feedback so we can make changes for the next go around. And then the committee will get a little break while John, Melissa, Tyler, and I do some work in the background with earmarking some funds that have to come out of the ARPA money that'll just be direct select board votes that don't have to go through the committee. And then we'll start phase 2. Aren't we lucky? So thank you, everybody. Any other announcements? Am I missing anything? Arthur, you said something, but you're on mute.
All right, as long as you know that I'm here. Okay.
We do. I would. Yeah. We see you, Arthur. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Miriam, I have a question. If this is the proper time, or I can wait.
Ask away.
Our goal for today to get to exactly 20 million.
It's a great question.
One question. Okay. And 2, in terms of the earmarks that have to come off the top, what does that come out of?
That
and
comes.
3,
yep. Oh, 3. Oh,
when do we have to have phase 2 done by? That's all.
What was the third one? I'm sorry, Brian.
When does phase 2 have to be completed on our end?
So the first I can answer the goal. Today we will vote on a slate, and I'll say around 20 million. But we have a lovely memo from the town administrator that really recommends we stick to 20 million as our, if we're close, if it's 20.5 or 21, I won't lose any sleep. But I would say we really want to try to get it to be right around there at 20 million. The second question was, see, I already forgot what was the second question. You got to ask them one at a time, Brian. What was the second question?
Why is your memory so good?
Single parent, 2 kids, full-time job, select board member. Yeah, go ahead. What was that second question?
It was, when do we have to finish round 2 by?
That was your third question.
I forget my second question. It must have been really not important.
The third question was, I don't actually know the answer to that. I think Melissa and Tyler and John and I need, I know what your second, I remember your second question.
Yeah. How much off the top?
Yes. So let me answer the third since I'm in the middle of answering it. Part of meeting in the interim with Melissa, Tyler, and John, we'll be actually figuring that out.
It's really about trying to coordinate with, right now, the ARPA deadline is kind of colliding with the combined reports deadline in the budget, which isn't ideal. So to the extent that we can fix that for the next round, that would really be ideal.
Yeah. Yes, it'd be nice. And it would be nice for us, I think, to have more time as a committee, right? This was very pressured. We were under a lot of a time crunch. So I would like us to avoid that. The second question, so the earmarked funds are things like salary for the grant administrator for the ARPA grant, right? Premium pay which is not going to come through the committee. It has to come through the select board and town administrator, and it's really just something we need to deal with. So we're not going to put that in front of the committee. And then there are some other expenses. I assume, Melissa, I can, like, the Zoom licenses for the town. There are some other ARPA related expenses that come from this money already, that comes from CARES money that is meant to be transitioned from this money. So those will be earmarked. So once we do that, then we'll know what our final number is for round phase 2 also. But we just thought it'd be better to just earmark them, and they have to be done anyway, so we don't need to have them go through the committee. Yeah, John.
Where does the 4 million come from?
Oh, what 4 million?
For the matching funds.
Oh, are you talking about BHA?
Yes.
So the matching funds from the 4 million for BHA comes from a state program. I asked Mel about this recently, called oh, good, Jenny knows even more. Good, because all I know it's from a state program. Jenny's gonna answer.
Short version is HILAP.
It's
Yeah.
what? I'm sorry.
HILAP. It's basically like a modernization program for housing authorities to modernize their assets.
In other words, it comes from the state, Arthur.
Yeah, through the Department of Housing and Community Development, Arthur.
In a separate grant, I mean, in a separate category?
So it's a separate program through the state that matches funds. So if we give them $4 million, then they get matched at a
Right.
rate of 2.1. It's the
Right,
state that matches it separately, correct?
Miriam, may I ask
yeah,
a question?
You are next, John. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Maybe it's more of a comment than a question. Because you did mention that, one of the things the select board has to decide is premium pay. I just wanted to be clear that it's not a given that there is going to be premium pay. We might decide to do it and we might decide not to do it, but it's not like we've already decided to do it. It's just a question of the amount. Is that a fair summation of where we are as a select board?
I would say yes, only because we haven't really discussed it together as a select board.
Correct.
So I've had a one-off with Heather that we talked about, what we talked about was process. So I think, yes, it is a fair summation to say that in terms of process, we decided to address premium pay without the committee. That's the discussion that we had.
That the select board would address it without the screening committee.
Without the screening committee.
Yeah,
correct.
I didn't want people to think that the select board has already decided on premium pay.
I think that's a great point of clarification. The select board has not discussed it. I've just discussed with Heather that we would pull it out of the duties from the committee and just make it the select board's issue.
Great.
Thank you for that clarification. All right. Any other questions or announcements from the committee? Yes,
Actually, I had one more question before we start.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. Because I do note that the amount that is listed for the school committee request or the school department request, it says updated, and then it says 3 million. Can you just help me understand the updating? Where did that come from, and how did it become 3 million?
So actually, Melissa, yeah, go ahead, Melissa. I was about to say, let's just table that for a second, because we're going to discuss that, John, when we start talking about the slate. Jenny has a question, so I just want to get to that, and then we'll read Mel's memo and then put a pin in that, and we will discuss it. Okay.
Sure.
All right, go ahead, Jenny.
Thank you. We had comments from Bernard Green about the community development block grant funding. And I'm just curious if that relates to CDBG funds that have yet to be programmed, or if some of them are already programmed. And we may talk about this along the way, but I feel it's relevant to just understand, is this looking into the federal fiscal year coming up? Or do you know the timing of when those funds become available? So there could be a number of different paths to answer this question, which I also understand.
So this is for the coming fiscal year. So these funds have not been distributed yet. And Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong. And actually Bernard, in a part of his memo, addressed all of the overlap. So it's in the the spreadsheet right now. And thankfully, I would say thankfully, or for whatever, there actually isn't a whole lot of overlap. So there are a couple of notes for us to keep in mind, but otherwise it doesn't really impact us too terribly much. But it's all in there. He did a I'd say he did a really thorough job of kind of pinpointing where we need to have our eye. All right. Anything else? All right. So Mel Kleckner sent us all a memo, and I'm just going to read just a few of the highlights of the memo. So anyone who's listening in who didn't have a chance to look at the memo, which is again on the site, knows where we're going from. And then we'll get right into, I think there are a few low-hanging fruit changes we can dispense of quickly. And then I think the big discussions, I think we have to actually do, the school is way up there to just figure out what that final number is. Although I think it's, again, with everybody's input, including Mel's, and Melissa will update us on that last conversation. I think we actually have our answer pretty much. So Mel talks about the school budget, and John, that's where that number comes from. So the recommendation from Mel, and I think generally with the support of the select board based on last Tuesday's meeting after we went over the school budget, is that $3 million of ARPA funding be allocated to the department's budget needs. And then Mel also recommends another $500,000 allocated for the express condition to be used to meet school building maintenance expenditures. And then, we would defer the school HVAC, so that would come out. So so the whole things for the school would be one grant of 3.5 with 500,000 specifically allocated for budget maintenance needs and expenditures. The other thing there are a few other things in Mel's memo, which is he also recommends, along with several other select board members, and we'll talk about this, funding the safety net to its full 1 million. For those of you who are not aware, the center housing, affordable housing and center and Kent Street development of 3.375 is going to be removed. That request was withdrawn, which is good because I was going to suggest we remove it anyway. And then the one other thing that I think is really important from Mel's memo is that for some of the municipal department expenditures, some of the smaller ones, like for the library, that we can, and some of the smaller health ones, that those just get consolidated into one proposal that will go to the town administrator. And then Melissa and Mel and Tyler will kind of make sure that that gets distributed in the ways it's supposed to. It makes it much easier for reporting, and also gives some flexibility if they find alternate funding sources. So those proposals we'll still somehow mark them as separate so people can see where the money is going for. But instead of all of those single proposals on the slate, you'll see one line for the total amount of 271,621. And actually, when we get to discuss that, I'm going to say we bump it up to 300,000, but we can discuss that at the time. And then finally, Mel, I think, has said, which is what we want to say, which is we want to try to keep this around 20 million. John, your hand is up, and then we'll start talking about the slate. Yeah. Go ahead, John.
Here I am. I think I understand this correctly, but I want to be sure I understand this correctly.
Yeah.
Because from what I see in what we have in front of us, the spreadsheet in front of us, the town department requests actually.
John, you broke up. I can't hear you. John, we can't hear you. John, all right. We know you want to say something. Yeah, John, we couldn't hear any of that.
Oh, Lord.
You need to upgrade your internet, man.
Boy, we do. I ought to apply for funds. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, here we go again. What I see on the spreadsheet is that not just the proposals that we recommended are now being bundled under one amount, one lump sum, but a number of proposals that we didn't recommend are being sort of also added to the bundle for consideration. And I wonder,
wait, where do you see that? Because I don't see that.
okay, so if you just sort of hover over the little red corner,
Yeah.
and then you see the note.
Oh, you've gone out again. So that, and John, that comment is directly from Mel's memo. It's a cut and paste of Mel's comment from the memo. And we've lost you again.
So it looks like things are in there that
John,
weren't actually.
we lost you again. Is there a way you can call in? Because we couldn't hear you again.
Yeah, I can call in, and I will do that.
Okay.
Okay. How much did you hear where I said that there's?
So here's my response to that. That little comment is literally a cut and paste of Mel's comment from the memo. So he doesn't list all of the. He says the range is of from 66,000 to 45 includes the Emergency Operations Center funding, which we did agree on. And that's actually the only one and the library, he only lists 2 of those in there. So I don't know where you're getting the assumption that it includes more than what we said. As far as I know, those are just the proposals we agreed on. But Tyler and Melissa, can you confirm that? And Tyler, do you mind sharing the?
Yeah, I was going to go ahead and say, because I think it'll be helpful for folks watching to follow. Everything that Mel gave us from that list is already on the slate. So these are just, let me look here. These are just all of the consolidated projects. Give me a second here, okay. So yeah, anything on here, ops projects. So anything that was roughly around 40,000, including this one health project as well that came in at 76, but it was just to consolidate it. But these were already agreed upon. There was nothing that was introduced.
Does that answer your question, John?
Well, but I do see the electric buses right there.
Where?
2116.
Where?
On the slate.
Oh, no, you're conflating 2 different things.
Yeah, so just to point this out, there were additions made by select board members as well. So when we received input from Bernard and Heather, these are also things that got lifted up. And I tried to color coordinate the ones that mentioned bringing proposals in. So in this case, this was one Heather mentioned that she wanted to see.
So John, you're conflating 2 different things. The one thing we're talking about now is that Mel wanted to take all those proposals in red at the bottom. Those are proposals we agreed on last week to go on the final slate. And he just wants to consolidate them into one proposal line that goes to the town administrator's office, because these are all town departments. Melissa, Tyler, am I getting that right?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay. He didn't add anything. This is just, if you go, Tyler, if you scroll up, if Tyler scrolls up to, where is it?
Right here.
Yeah, that's, somebody's, John, you gotta mute thank you. That's the one thing we're talking about right now. That 271,000, 621 and 32 cents, 2272. That is just all of those small grants put together into one line item.
But why wasn't that, I'm sorry, why wasn't that the way it was given to us in the beginning?
Well, Arthur, all of those departments made small proposals. The departments themselves put in the grant proposals. Yeah. So we decided based on our criteria, which one of those to fund, rather than leaving it right. Everybody went through the same process. And what we came out with is we decided to fund these, whatever, 10. And Mel and Melissa are just saying, just give them to us in one big chunk. It's easier for everybody.
Yeah, I'm back and I'm now joining you by a better connection. I think
Great.
maybe that's okay, great. And you can thank me for that feedback screech.
That's okay. But do you understand? Do you understand what's going on here?
I absolutely understand it. I've actually always understood it. But what
Okay.
I don't understand is what we're looking at on the spreadsheet says Slate. Now, Slate has always been, you know, what we were up to date in recommending. And then it, you know, gets to where there is the green section. And in that green section is a bunch of stuff that we actually didn't recommend.
Right, John, the green section is the stuff that came to us through the public hearing, through Mel, and through the select board comments on Tuesday and at the public hearing.
But as of this date, it is not approved on our slate.
That's right. That's for us. It is for us to discuss today.
Great, got it.
This column
Yes.
Y will be what, when I built this out this morning, the column Y is just where we're going to migrate all of those funding recommendations, the final ones for the select board. So if we just hypothetically decide we don't want to do the recreation thing, we're just going to put a 0 here for the buses.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and then we'll pare it down. This is just the visual to help us. This is just us trying to visualize and make sense of like the additions, recommendations, look at everything side by side, just so we can get a sense of where everything is.
Yeah, I'm there. I just,
Okay,
we've
great.
never used slate yet to refer to anything that we haven't already approved. So that's all.
No, all I'm talking about is we have already approved everything in Mel's line item. We just bunched it all up into one instead of 10 different proposals.
Yep.
Yep. So anything,
Okay.
just for clarification, anything that's falling under this column R is what was approved last Friday, or what was put on the draft slate last Friday. So all of this. So also just where you see the blank, anything that's blank, which I tried to just put it here to make it easier, that's being moved up, or not moved up, but being recommended to be moved up for today's slate. So
And yet column R only has a total of 19, and that's because you've already taken the
I took 108 Center Street off.
Okay.
Because they withdrew their proposal.
They withdrew,
Yeah.
yes.
All right. All right. Jenny.
This is maybe being repetitive, but if you can go back up to that town item, the consolidated one,
The green one.
the
Yep.
green, the under town administrator, the 271. Just to be clear, that's not every town department request. It's only
No.
related to operating budget deficits and COVID-19 response. So you don't see in that math anything from planning and community development. It doesn't mean that it's out of the mix or couldn't be funded, but it's just not in that grouped up total. Is that
It's
right, Melissa?
consolidating everything. If you scroll down, it's consolidating everything in column T. Tyler, if you could just go further down so you can see the reds. Everything that's in red there,
Yeah.
the sum total of everything that's in red there is the same amount as what's in green. So it's basically just collapsing all of those requests into one.
But Jenny, it doesn't mean to the second part of your question, if there's no, it doesn't mean that we can't fund the planning and development, right? This is
No,
just.
I figured that was
line it
the
from
answer.
Yeah, but
Just in case.
it's fair, yeah. Great.
No,
And
it's
Brian,
good.
you had
It's
your
fine.
hand up? Brian, did you get your your question?
Well, I got kicked off. My internet had a kerfuffle. I think I get where we're at. Is this document available anywhere that I could pull
I
it up on
sent this-
my computer?
I sent
Tyler.
this in an email. So this was emailed, OneDrive and Google Docs.
Thank you.
You're
All
welcome.
right, so I think we're ready to I think we should just start at the top. A couple of these are real easy. I think that 100, I'll just start. And again, just like last time, I'm going to talk and y'all need to interrupt me. Okay. So 198,000 for these pedestrian safety study, Vision Zero, that no change. That stays in the slate. That can move over in the full amount. Great. Brookline Brookline Center for Community Health, no change. $1 million, full funding, that stays. That was there, that stays. The food pantry. So the only comment I would say on the food pantry is most everybody seemed comfortable with the 300,000. Just a note that they will also be getting some money for from a community block grant. But Bernard and I discussed this. I don't see, there's no reason why they can't get both. The needs are there. The community block grant money is earmarked for something very specific. So they don't interfere with each other. The 40,000 is allocated to help with transportation between sites. So I don't think there's any reason to make any adjustments.
And the figure is 300,000?
The figure is 300,000.
Okay.
We could, so, you know, let me see if I can go through this quickly, Melissa. Melissa suggested maybe we just go to the greens and the reds, but there are a few changes here. I just want to like the steps to success. Oh, well, okay. Again, quickly, I think everyone agrees on 500,000. They will also be getting some community block grant money. Again, it is also earmarked for a very specific different program. So I don't think there's overlap.
There's not.
Say that again.
There wasn't.
There wasn't. Great. All right. So I'm going to go faster then.
Wait, okay, so but which, sorry,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. So which one are we talking about? Is this one or two? You know,
This is the college initiative.
Okay, so I have some concerns.
Okay.
And I don't, you know, there are children from low socioeconomic backgrounds who don't get a chance to, you know, to join Steps to Success, but go to college, okay, and have difficulty, you know, ponying up the tuition. Why can't they be a part of this initiative to help augment whatever? I'm just going to give you an example. I know I've heard the story about one particular young lady who has 2 years of college in a nursing program, doesn't have money to continue on. It lives in public housing, is working at McDonald's, struggling, trying to scrape together funds to complete her education. Why can't some of these funds be available?
So Arthur, I'm just gonna, Juan Cantu actually answered he's with Steps to Success, and he has actually answered your question in the chat saying this is exactly what they're trying to do with this money. This will allow an expansion of the program to include low-income non-STEP students.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
All right, there you go. Thank you. All right, I think actually Melissa probably has a point. We're just gonna scroll down. All the non-controversial stuff just stays. You can move all that over, Tyler. So let's go to
Hold on.
yeah, sorry.
No,
Well,
hold on.
we're gonna
I
talk.
did that wrong. So yeah, just talk for a minute while I fix this. Sorry.
Okay. So the very first screen, I'm going to draw your attention to line 25, which is the Steps to Success. There is some discussion to increase that funding to 1.4 from Raul. Everybody else recommends 750,000. And I'm going to tell you where I land on this, and then we can briefly chat. I agree it should get 1.4, but I think we should give it 750,000 now, and then ask them to come back for the other 750 in phase 2. So how does everybody feel about that?
I agree as well with you.
That seems very reasonable, but what does reason have to do with it?
Okay. All right. So Jenny, Arthur, are you guys comfortable with that? Again, the select board will take it up on Tuesday if they disagree.
By the way,
with that.
Yeah, go ahead.
someone from STEPS has asked that we just correct the project summary to say kindergarten and high school.
Oh, okay. We'll add that after. But these were just trying to be brief, but.
Yeah,
All right,
but
if you're ready for me, Tyler, then the final number for 22-4 for steps to success, it'll stay 750.
Yep.
Okay, great. The other recommendation was for Women Thriving to have their number bumped up to their full amount. I'm actually fine with doing that. I think it's another 150,000. I think we do have a little bit of cushion because of the Center Street funding went back into the pot, although I do want to keep some of that to give to BHA. So keep that in mind. But unless there are any objections, I support fully funding that instead of the 250, giving them the 385, 520 that they've asked for. Because I think the other point that Mel made, which I think is important and was discussed a little bit at the meeting Tuesday too, which is we have to make sure these programs can run with less money, right? That we're not hobbling them. If we just say, like, it's easy for the food pantry, if we give them 300,000, they can use that, right? But some of these programs may need the full funding to actually execute what it is they're intending to execute. So what are the other thoughts on the Women Thriving Inc.?
So I just, obviously it's a wonderful program that should be funded if we had all the money in the world. I guess my question to you, Miriam, is why not do the same thing that we just did and say, come back in round two for the other $136,250? Well,
that's not a bad solution, Brian. Arthur, you want to say something?
I do. How did you know that? I'm going to advocate till the end of time that I know we're going to come to this, but that we allocate more money than we are planning to the Black and Brown group. Okay. And if we're going to give additional money to Women Thriving, bringing their sum up, I say do the same or do something like that for Black and Brown Club.
So, okay. I hear what you're saying. I want to make sure we're taking these as separate proposals though.
Okay. All right. Okay.
They're on the list. We can.
Yeah.
So I'd say hold off on making a decision about this until we come to Black and Brown.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's revisit that one.
I was going to just weigh in that.
Go ahead, John.
I was just going to weigh in that I think we should stick with 250,000. And at the same time, as Brian said, with the encouragement to go for the other money next round.
Yeah. And this is something Melissa and I briefly discussed this morning, which is, we will make some guiding criteria for the second round of proposals. And, one of those will be, if we've asked you to come back for more funding in the second round, then you're going to get elevated a little bit in terms of preference for round two. Because to me, that only makes sense, right? So we could certainly put them in that category if we, and say to them, come back for the other piece of this for phase two. I think that's fair.
May I just make sort of an editorial comment at this point, just so that everyone appreciates how what goes into these decisions. We were faced with the reality, once this process got rolling, that some groups would take one approach and other groups would take a different approach. Some groups took the approach of kind of the sky's the limit, in order to get what they actually think they are likely to get, they asked for a much bigger amount. And other groups took the opposite approach, so that we don't seem to be overreaching. We should, tailor our request to the minimum needed to actually, maybe get it approved and get something done. And it's sometimes hard to tell the difference between what you're looking at. Is it one of the first category or one of the second category? And, I think that entered into my decision-making in this case. I wasn't sure this was a group that, in its experience, in its lifetime, had handled the full amount that they were requesting previously.
Yeah.
And that maybe it was a bit ambitious. So that was what went into my thinking.
All right. I mean, I think especially if, John, when you, Melissa and Tyler and I meet in the interim and create some criteria for second round 2 phase funding, if we are going to do some priority setting for organizations that got phase funding, we told them, if you do well and you come back, we'll give you more, then I don't have any problem with that. So we'll just need to put a note there. And by the way, I'm going to make the same recommendation for the teen center, that we give them the 500,000 and then ask them to come back in phase 2. And this was a big one for Raul too, so we could bump this up to 750,000. I will say, I think that there is certainly, the teen center is in dire need. I mean, the students are really suffering, and I know this really firsthand. Students are really suffering. So anything we can do to support the students in the community, and I'm a big fan of. So I don't know, how do people feel if because they asked for 1.5, we decided 500,000. Now we have a little bit, again, cushion. What is the feeling if we moved that up to 750,000, which is also in line with what we're doing to Step Success, which is giving them half and saying, come back for the second half, the second phase.
They asked for 3.
Well, they asked for 3. Oh, so
Yeah.
1.5 would be half. Oh yeah,
Would
you're right.
be-
I see that.
Would be half. Yeah.
So in that case, I would be willing to give them 1. Where does
Which is
everybody
where,
else fall
yeah,
on that?
right. That's where it was though.
Yeah. So should we move it back up to 1?
Well, this is
Brian?
where I kind of come back to my question earlier, is what is our target?
Our target is 20, right? Well, so let's
Yeah.
move it now. And then, again, we'll have to revisit once everything makes the final list.
No,
Okay, I guess I thought this was the final list, so I'm
no,
just confused.
Oh,
So-
well, we're moving a few things around based on the public hearing and based on the select board feedback. So I'd say mostly the final list, but there are a few things like the 3.375 from Center Street is now off, right? Arthur, go ahead. Sorry.
So they started at 3, right?
Yeah.
We
Yes.
knocked them down to 15, right? 1,500,000.
No, we knocked them down to 500. Raul wants them to go back up to 1.5.
Oh, I thought we had knocked them down to 1.5.
Nope.
So I say go up to 1. I recommend that we go up to 1.5.
I'm comfortable with that. Jenny.
Okay,
Right.
with one
Oh, wait,
proviso.
hang on, we have to hear from others too. Arthur, you and I are go, but we have to get what other
Okay.
people. Go ahead, Jenny.
Okay, thank you. I agree with this moving it to 1.5, but if we could just go back to Women Thriving for a second.
Oh, yes.
It's a 3-year proposal, and it says that it would be 120. I know that we seem to be liking round numbers, but for 1 year to run the program is $128,840. So that's $257,680 for a 2-year program. Could we perhaps bump that to that number?
Oh, yeah, I think that's,
It's $257,680 for a
Yeah.
2-year program. And by the way, it does, I think there's a lot to be said about that program. I just want to make clear that I'm very supportive of this program. I wish we could give them the full amount. But if we're going to just do 2 of the 3 years, that's the amount.
yeah, thank you. Tyler, can you make that change? I think that's appropriate.
You did.
Brian?
I guess I would suggest at this point that any substantial increases over that bring the total over, 2.21 million, whoever proposes it has to then tell us where it's going to come from. I think we need to stop just adding and start getting real.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you, but I'm going to say is that we just took 3.375 out of the mix. So we do have that amount to reallocate.
Well, I guess I would respectfully disagree, because the original number was like 23 and change, and we're trying to hit 20. Now we're, depending on which one of these you look at, we're at like 20.2 or 21. So again, I hate to be
Yeah.
so
No,
rigid
you're
on
good.
this, but
Yeah.
this is, I do budgeting for a living, and this is kind of
Yeah.
like
I see what you're
my
saying.
training. So
Okay. So how do you recommend we move forward then? I'm not being facetious. I'm actually just asking.
Let's
no,
just
that's
look
fair.
at what
I mean, I guess we have there's a bottom number at the bottom of this. Yeah, Tyler's at it right now. Our slate is currently 19.7. If we do the town administrators, it's 20.2, etc. So if we go with our number, which is 19.7, and we want to go no higher than 2.5, we can add an extra, what is that, $700,000.
All right.
And then if somebody wants to add $1 million, you have to subtract 300,000 from something else, or something like that.
So
I would like to agree with Brian on that. And I'd also like to just complicate it a little bit more by saying, I do think we have to keep in mind the history of organizations and their demonstrated track record and capacity. And these are great organizations that do great stuff, but we're talking about some of them that have, an annual budget of, let's say, $900,000, and we're talking about giving them $4 million. The amount is way sort of over and above what they are accustomed to handling.
John,
And, I think that
which organization is that we're giving?
I didn't want to get into particulars in that way. I think, that is part of each individual member's research and plays into each individual member's recommendation.
Okay. So if we're going by the town administrators, so first of all, are we going by the town administrators? That's the first question. Let me quickly look through here. So Tyler, which column are you updating?
I'm updating column Y all the way
Okay,
to the
thank you. So that's
yeah.
the one we should be looking at, right?
Column Y is what's being decided
Built right
today.
now.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So where are we now in column Y? What is our?
So we just did women thriving. So row 26. So we are on teen center below women thriving.
Okay, so I'm going to make this suggestion. So we know the actual real number, because I think Brian was looking at the town administrator number.
Well, I was looking at a bunch of columns, so that
You were
I
okay.
didn't know we were in column Y, to be very honest with you.
Okay.
It's my confusion.
Yeah, it is a bit, there's so much input now, it's gotten a bit confusing. So let's do this. To me, there's two things we really need to discuss. Let's discuss them. Then we'll fill in column Y with everything that kind of was already pre-agreed, and then play with what's left in the numbers. How does that sound? Okay. So the two things I think we need to discuss are the housing authority and schools. I think that based on the discussion with the select board on Tuesday after we got the school budget, based on Mel's memo, I believe what we agreed upon is 3.5 for the schools total. That's getting rid of the HVAC. It's 3 million. Where is it in here? It's yes, zeroing out the HVAC It's
Bear with
3 million. The way Mel did it is fine with me, where we have the 3.5 and go ahead, Melissa.
It's basically staying within the number that was originally on the slate and just recategorizing it. So 3 million will be addressing their structural deficit. We are going to be doing some work on the general fund budget. Ways and Means just came out this week. We think that we can provide the 300,000 to basically resolve their current deficit. And then $500,000 for the building department to address some pretty substantial maintenance needs that we've been talking about with advisory for several years. There's a gap in funding for fiscal 23, and we've asked the schools to make sure that we're committed to honoring that as well. So the overall slate doesn't change, the categories just change. And we've had a meeting with the school department to discuss this as well.
So can we carry that number over into the column Y, that 3.5 number in row 29?
Yeah.
You guys are going a little fast for me. So what?
Arthur, let me catch you up. Essentially based on other places to get money, discussions with the school, review of this budget, the school budget with the select board on Tuesday. The suggestion, and we believe also with the mandate from the select board, is to go ahead and fund the school gap with $3 million and then 500,000 additional dollars for maintenance
Okay.
and repairs.
Sure. So where is the, is it 3 million for the schools in the first?
So what Tyler's got up there is the
that-
total is 3.5, but 500 of it will be allocated for building maintenance expenditures. Do you see it?
Is that, okay, is that in Y?
That is just now in Y.
Okay, 4.5,
No, 3.5.
3.5, okay. Got it, okay, okay.
Great.
Can we go, but can we just for a second go back now to the teen center?
No, I don't want to go back to the teen center just yet. I wanted to
No,
talk
but
about-
just I just want to know the figure. Have we
Oh,
changed
we
the
haven't
figure?
decided, we haven't finalized the figure. That's why I don't want to
Okay.
go back just yet.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Okay, yeah. The other thing I think we need to discuss, and then we could work on, seeing where we are and then, adding extra or moving around, is, to me, there was a very clear message, both in the public hearing and in the emails, about increasing funding for BHA, which is something that Jenny wanted to do right from the beginning. I just want to nod on that. And so, I think even if it's another million, I think we should at least put in, thinking, and this to me was exactly the removing the Center Street money, that we could take some of that money and reallocate it. And if we end up at 21 million, Brian, because this is important, because you bring up a really good point, but I'm cool with that if it's for this. So I'm going to advocate very strongly we had at least another million into the BHA pot. Are there any, I need 3 thumbs up. Have I got 3 thumbs up?
So you're looking for 5 million, is that the number?
Yes.
Let's put it in and see what it does.
Great. Okay. All right. Now we're going to rely on Tyler to be super fast.
Right.
Are we going to get back to the school number?
I thought we were done with the school number, John. What do you need? What don't you understand from the school number?
Miriam, to be honest, you're moving so fast, people don't have a chance to get a word in edgewise. I would like to say something about the school number.
Please do.
Thank you. It's a pretty big number. So, and I know I'm at risk of course he thinks his idea is better, because he always does. I'm pretty stubborn that way, but I do want to say I think my idea is better, and here's why. And my idea, by the way, is to kind of split the difference, half to meet their operating needs, and half to meet their deferred maintenance and facilities needs. And the reason I feel that's a better idea is because, quite frankly, they are way behind in what they should be spending on facilities and maintenance, whereas a case could be made that they are actually short of money for operating expenses because they haven't done what they need to do to get their operating expenses under control. So I think to put the major chunk into operating and to shortchange the facilities and maintenance misses the point. They need to kind of get down their operating costs, and they need to spend more where facilities and maintenance are concerned.
Okay, John, I'm going to suggest that we table this discussion for us to have Tuesday with the select board because of two reasons. The first is because the 3.5 recommendation is direct from Mel based on discussions with the school committee and on, I think, our discussion Tuesday with the select board. So what you're suggesting is not in line with what we discussed Tuesday as a select board. And so rather than leave it to this committee to somehow guess what the rest of the select board is thinking, I think we allocate the 3.5 as it is. And then Tuesday, when we meet as a select board, this is one of the numbers we absolutely must have to discuss and come to consensus to.
Well, I would say that the discussion Tuesday at the select board went along the same lines as the discussion that we just had. It was rushed. People were saying, so then we're all in agreement without even asking people their individual opinions, and no vote was taken. So as far as I'm concerned, no vote has been taken. We don't know where the select board stands on this. And, you know, I'm happy to make the case to Mel that I just made to this group. I don't think he would fight too hard if we took a slightly different stand in terms of how the money should be allocated than was the position that he offered.
Well, let me be perfectly clear then on my stance. I would fight it.
Good.
So I think I think we leave it as is and we move it to the discussion for us Tuesday at the select board.
That's fine with me as long as the other members of this screening committee are okay with basically, you know, not having the final say on this.
Well, let's ask them. Brian, you have your hand up.
Just speaking completely for myself, I don't feel like I know enough. I don't know enough about what the school's needs are to say one way or another. So all we have is, we don't even have an application really. So we have what the TA is saying, and I believe him. So, you know, I'm inclined at this point to go with his recommendation for lack of better knowledge. And I just want to say, Tyler, thank you for doing what you're doing. This is very helpful.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Arthur and Jenny.
Go ahead, Jenny. You're muted.
Sorry, for some reason my computer was in stuck mode. I feel the same as Brian. I really don't. I would defer to the select board on this matter. Do not have enough information to determine the appropriate amount at this time. And I would defer to the town administrator's recommendation as well.
Great. And Arthur?
I would third that, okay? I mean, I just don't have enough information, or for that matter, you know, the kind of bandwidth to be able to make an intelligent decision about it.
Thank you. Okay, so here's what I've heard. That the committee is comfortable deferring to the town administrators as a placeholder for the select board to further discuss and finalize on Tuesday. Okay.
Yeah, and I just want people to know I'm very content with that. That's fine.
Great. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
All right. So now what I hope is that we can get some sort of final numbers to where we are, and then we can start playing around with what's left. We're at 21. Is that really our final number?
Right now, yes.
So
Without adding anything from the green or other adjustments, I just pulled everything over from the draft that wasn't adjusted yet.
Okay. So why don't you scroll us back up slowly and we'll see where is there anything that we can remove? So can we talk about the Davis Footbridge? I know I'm going to lose this fight, but the Davis Footpath Bridge design and construction, I'm going to just say that there was not a single public comment about any of these about this. And I just feel like I know what's going to be said, but I just have to put it out there. You know, I wouldn't lose any sleep if we didn't fund this. Where's everybody else?
Well,
I would
I
lose
guess
sleep.
I will
Go ahead.
defend it, but I guess like I have a process question first, and I'm sorry I keep coming back to this.
No, you know I love process, Brian. Bring it.
So let's say we get exactly 20 million. Then you and Melissa and John and Tyler go and figure out whatever the overhead is going to be. I'm calling it overhead because I don't know whatever comes off the top. Then we're going to come back with the round 2 number that will be significantly lower than 20. Am I correct in understanding this? If we go over 20 now, we have that much less in round 2.
Yes, that is correct.
Plus whatever you folks decide to take off the top.
Correct.
So we should probably, in my humble opinion, err to try to get as close to 20 as possible at this point.
You
Safe
and
in the
Mel,
knowledge
yes.
that there's less wiggle room the next time around.
Yes,
And
but
so I
I
guess
will,
I would, sorry.
no, I will just say this. You're absolutely correct, but also there may be other funds coming in from other sources that will be able to be utilized between now and phase 2 for other things, right?
Okay, so Tyler, I hate to ask you to do this. I hate having to do Excel live, but I'm going to ask you to do this. If you could please do a quick calculation on what we are suggesting to move to phase 2. We're encouraging to apply in phase 2 because I want to get a sense of what that number is
That's
right
a good
now.
question.
So what exactly are you saying deduct from the total ARPA that we're receiving? What we have
No,
right
I'm
now for
suggesting
phase 1?
I'm suggesting if, for instance, we want to give 4 million to the teen center, we're giving them 2, and some cell put 2 million, which is the delta between those two.
Oh, yeah, easy.
Easy says.
You made that
Well
seem
done.
hard.
I have that effect on people.
I have a second question.
Ask my lovely
I have
wife.
a second question. I have a second question. Sorry. Is the R column the column that is, that's ours, and it includes some of the things that are different from what we started with at the beginning of this day?
This is what came from last Friday. So everything that was on the slate, those recommended amounts, this is what R is.
Yeah, but where's the update?
What do you
The
mean?
update's Y.
Yeah.
We gotta go all the way out to Y. Oh,
Yes.
boy. Yeah, great.
And Tyler, I know you're busy, but the 384,000 for the where is it? The CARES funded transport, 394, sorry. 359. Oh, I see. We can, which number did you put in the Y column?
I put the recommended. I was pulling anything from R that we have.
Okay, so for that, we can definitely put in the Bernard's number because that is reduced because the CARES, there's CBG
Oh,
funding.
true.
I found savings. Come on, Brian, where's your excitement?
35,000.
Hey, something.
So sorry, the reason I'm asking to go through with this is because as the principal proponent of the Davis Path Footbridge,
Yeah.
if there is sufficient money in round 2 and we are really hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, urging folks to apply again, I'm willing to let it go if we get closer to 2 at this point.
Mhm.
That just makes a distinction without a difference as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so you're just saying push Davis Footbridge off to round 2, which I could get behind.
Depending on where we're at with the numbers. And
Right.
Yeah, so let's see where we're at
Yeah,
with the numbers.
I'm a numbers guy. And
May others weigh in on that?
Yeah, of course.
this is just my opinion, John, of course.
Yeah. I disagree. I mean, I just think we were pretty much, behind this, and it's crucial, and it is truly vulnerable populations. It's not just any kind of we got behind in some maintenance and now we got to do the maintenance project. It is the denial of access to Boylston Street Playground, not just to people who are inconvenienced, but to people who, some of them whom are of limited mobility and now have to go a ridiculous distance just to get from, say, Davis Avenue to what is a crucial recreational play area in their neighborhood. And so I just don't see any reason to postpone. And we're not talking about full funding. We're talking about just enough money to get the work started.
Can I ask a question?
Of course, Arthur.
John, do you know whether or not that park that's right there, the playground, it's really a park, the baseball field, whether it's used less frequently now as a result of that bridge going out, or whether or not it's remained the same in terms of usage?
I don't have the numbers to prove it, but common sense, anybody who visits the park and considers what it would take to get there, from White Place or from Davis Ave, or from the Emerson Park area today, what it would take to get there today versus what it took, when the footbridge was safe.
Right.
I'd be astounded if there's not less use.
Because, last Sunday was the first time I'd been there in months and months and months. And it doesn't seem, the grass is green, the grass is, fluffy and full. It doesn't seem as though it's been, utilized as much as I've seen it in the past. I don't know. So
Right.
the grass looked too green.
Right.
So this is, John and I are on opposite sides of this. So we need the rest of you to weigh in. I think Brian has made it clear that he would be okay pushing this off to phase 2, and Jenny has her hand up.
Question maybe for Brian. The 1.4 million will be for preliminary design. Is that accurate? And is there any possibility of, I mean, I'm looking at this, I can't figure out what goes in, why the number is 1.4 million. I do a lot of design work and it does seem kind of high. Can you explain it a little bit more, maybe?
The Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority is involved.
Well, yeah, I get it. So is there like an access permit or license? Yeah, is it a licensing thing or access permit though? Or which, because this is just preliminary design documents.
It's getting it to 25% design.
25%.
Additional funding. There's ADA compliance involved as well. So it's figuring out what that will entail, whether it's lifts, ramps, elevators, etc. And it's liaising with the T to get them to come out and, tell the town what they would permit and estimate how much diversions there would be. And so I think that's where the cost comes in.
It does seem really high. I understand MBTA.
I thought it seemed low.
Okay. That might be based on your experience.
I live in this world, so that number.
Yeah, that is true. Yes. And then just a second question is, how does, I'm reading the proposal more carefully here. How it says that maybe it will be programmed in the town CIP for full renovation. Is there any way to put this in the CIP coming, at some future point or special?
It's nowhere in the near term CIP. I think the goal here was to have the design ready so that when the infrastructure bill comes out, that it would be able to be shovel ready. So that's really the goal with this request.
And Melissa, is there any other way to get this shovel ready? Like, are there any other funds we could potentially, like between now phase 1 and phase 2, is there anything else that might be usable?
Not within the CIP currently. The CIP is extremely tight this year. We're cutting core CIP in order to balance. So this kind of money is just not available.
May I just add one more note, which I feel negligent, I didn't say it before, because I'm chair of the Boylston Street Corridor Study Committee. And one of the major hinges of the Boylston Street Corridor Study Committee's recommendations is a request to the Department of Transportation to make a major investment in Route 9, Boylston Street, in that part of the corridor, the very same part of the corridor we're talking about with Boylston Playground, in order to make it more pedestrian friendly, people friendly, bike friendly. And, you know, DOT, I wouldn't blame them if they looked at our request for them to make a much bigger investment than this and said, and this is the town that won't even pony up, you know, 1.4 million for the design phase of a footbridge. You know, they don't even seem to value this playground. So I do think there's a lot at stake here.
I'm going to counter that with, that may be true, but is this really appropriate for ARPA funding?
I think I have confidence in the department head that it wouldn't have gotten this far, and with the recommendation of the town administrator, if it weren't.
I think it absolutely is.
The final rule, just so I can add, does talk a lot about the built environment. The Treasury does explicitly call out projects like this, so
Okay.
it's supported.
There's
All right.
absolutely nothing wrong with this project and its applicability or eligibility. It absolutely does, and it serves populations who are in need. And it's about access to open space. And it also helps the local business community and other parks and recreational opportunities. I support it for that reason. The amount does seem really high. That was my, challenge point. So I know not everybody may agree, and we may not all agree with each other.
Nope, that's why this is, what is it Melissa said today? I wrote it down, Melissa, right? Budget by committee. Couldn't be more. Should be in the Urban Dictionary. All right, so it looks like we all know how I feel. That being said, it looks like for now, the Davis Footpath Bridge design and construction will stay at 1.4, and it'll be up to the select board on Tuesday. Tyler, what are we looking at for phase 2 funding that Brian had asked you to see what that Y was?
This is just everything summed right now. This is operating under the assumption of just what the requests are. Unless we know ones that explicitly aren't coming back, which we don't. So
I don't think, I'm confused. I don't think that's what Brian was asking. Brian.
Did I miss?
Yeah, I think what Brian was asking was like steps to success. We've asked them to come back and ask for another 750. And Women's Thriving, we asked them to come back and ask for another approximately 128.
Yeah. That's what's over here in Z right now. Is the difference between what we're recommending now and their original ask. And
no, but just for the ones we're actually saying to them, come back and for phase 2 funding.
Okay, all right.
Not for all of the, not for every Y, just the Ys that we've actually earmarked as, please come back and apply again.
Okay, well then I'm gonna do this in the background, ignore me.
Okay.
So you can see everything I'm doing.
We can. And I will say is that, right, but not a guarantee. That's correct. We're just not to guarantee that we're going to fund them in phase 2, but we're referring them to return for the remainder of their ask. I think he just wants to know how much that's going to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, good. And since I want to see where we are with the Y, we'll just wait a minute while you do this.
Well,
no
he's
pressure.
doing that. Can we just review? So we did not make a change to the teen center amount, and we did not make a change to the Women Thriving amount. Is that correct?
Essentially, we made a tiny change to the Women Thriving amount just so that it actually equals 2 years of programming.
Very good idea. Yeah.
But otherwise, we did not make a change to the teen center because I think we need to see where we are with the final number, which we are about to, which we're getting there right now. So
and we're at 3.5 on schools.
Yes, and we're at 3.5 on schools.
And we're at 5 on BHA.
And we are 5 on BHA, correct?
Okay, great. Just want to be sure I knew where we were.
All right, and it looks like we are at 21,257.
And that delta from what projects I can
Okay.
remember that to bring back was 3.2.
Just 3.2.
Unless there's anything I missed.
I can live with that.
Yeah, same. All right, so here's what, let's take a look at this. To me, we can't really add anymore, right? So the
I
question
agree.
is, are we comfortable with this as it is?
I
And
mean, sorry, Miriam, I just want to clarify. We
Mhm.
can't add any more in the context of the two things we've discussed already, but we haven't even finished going through the list.
we can't add anymore unless we take something away.
Okay, well, there are some items that, for example, there's one in particular I would like to add, and I'm more than happy to say what I would take away when I do discuss that. So
Okay, well, bring it on, John. What do you want to
bring
add?
it,
Sorry.
bring it.
Sorry, John. Can we just go up to the top of the list, Tyler, just so we're clear and my brain is just a little slow
Yeah, I
today.
know, right?
Here.
Okay. So, yeah, okay.
Very slowly scroll, Tyler.
And John, sorry to cut across you there. I just
No, Brian, this is important. I'm usually the one who's doing this kind
Oh,
of
wait,
stuff.
scroll down a second. No, okay, yeah, you're fine.
Slower.
Lower, yeah.
Poor Tyler.
Tell me if I'm going too fast. Do we want to just land on John's stuff or?
Yeah.
All right.
All right, John, what is it you want? Brian, are you okay with that? What we just looked at? Okay.
Thank you.
John, what is it you want to add and what do you want to subtract?
Well, I just want to add, if it's necessary at this point, or confirm that it has been added. There was there was a Council on Aging line item that I wanted to add. There was a Chamber of Commerce line item that I wanted to add, and then I wanted to add the Black and Brown Club for $50,000.
And what do you want to subtract?
I have a couple of subtractions. I strongly urge that we reduce by half the amount of money for the utility assistance. And I strongly urge that we hold off on Brookline broadband proposal.
The 40,000?
Yeah.
I'm gonna just put
yeah.
just what that looks like.
So here's what, I don't have any problem with reducing the Brookline broadband. Melissa and I actually talked about it this morning. Let's take that one because that's easy. Does anyone else in the group have any problem with taking out that 40,000 with the Brookline broadband? It's very unlikely that, okay, everyone's saying no. So let's just take that out.
It was my recommendation. I can live with it.
Live with that. Great.
But I do have other questions. So whenever you're finished.
Yeah,
please.
well, we need to talk about the utility.
Right.
So yeah, go ahead, Jenny.
Well, just a quick question about this spreadsheet. Tyler, where are the planning and community development items? I'm sorry, when you scrolled, I might have blinked.
No, you're fine. There is no, I just sorted these, cluster them together. So there's probably not a lot of rhyme or reason to they're kind of dispersed.
Okay.
They're
up there.
Yeah, so the
Okay, they already got copied and pasted over in that earlier action.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is just building off that draft slate. So this is just everything was carried over and now we're.
Hey, Tyler, is it possible to slide the Y column over so that it's right next to the project summaries?
Yeah, we'll do that.
because I can't keep going back and forth.
No, that's fair. It was a design choice.
And
Maybe
now
not.
I've screwed up your, your.
I don't know. You're good.
Is it still adding up at the bottom? I'm sure you can fix that, but.
Yeah. Yep, we're good.
Okay, great. I don't know about others. This makes it a lot easier for me to follow.
Is this
So now,
better?
just to be clear, everybody, we're looking at Q.
Right.
Okay. Here's my question.
Let's go back down.
Yeah. And this may be something that we just have to take up with the select board on Tuesday in terms of the utilities. We went ahead and put more, we did go ahead and up the safety net to $1 million, correct? At the beginning.
Let me
Well,
look. I want to say yes.
Yes. So I feel like if we can instruct the safety net fund to make sure that they're earmarking some of that money to pay for utility emergency bills, like to kind of take on some of the reasoning of the utility bill, I'm okay with reducing it because we put another 500,000 into the community foundation. How does everyone else feel?
Can I ask a question before they weigh in? Because I think
Yeah.
this might be important. If we go back down to the actual line item with the amount next to it, for some reason, I thought we still had that at 634,000. And now I see it's at 300,000.
You just recommended 300,000.
Oh, I know I did, but it wasn't voted on by anybody else.
No,
so-
we're discussing it
Just
right
put it
now.
in.
He just
Just
put it
see.
in because we're discussing it right now.
Okay, just want to be sure.
And Tyler, what's that give us for our Y?
You mean our Q?
Or sorry, our Q.
No, you're fine. It's 21.2 roughly.
21.2. Okay. So how do other people feel about that? Because otherwise we can leave it in and we could leave it at 600,000 or whatever, 614. And we can leave this up to the select board to discuss on Tuesday. Because some of these things I think are just going to be up to the select board to finally like parse out. But if you have a strong opinion, I would like to hear it.
I think the question remains still how this money is distributed, but also it's somewhat urgent. So I'm not sure we received an answer to that question previously, is how would this actually happen? How would we disperse funds to the people who need access to this debt relief if it was going through the town? How would we do that? Because this was a proposal by a select board member. The alternative is to provide it to another group who would then address the issue and people could come to them and access funding. I understand how that might work. But what if it stays the way that it is right now? How do we distribute those funds? I mean, I don't know if this is a question for Melissa or Tyler, but I still don't have a good sense of that.
I'd love
Yeah.
to hear Melissa's answer to that.
Yeah, and actually Raul is here to answer, and I am. Can we promote him and we can?
Yeah, I would like Raul to be able to describe this. And then the other question I have is, I looked back into the proposal, and it talks about sort of the average debt per customer. So I'd want to be careful about how we determine a lower number if that's where we go with this.
Mhm. Let's hear from Raul if we can.
Yeah, and I think Melissa, thank you all. I think Melissa can talk about the sort of the technical specifics about moving money from here to there. But essentially, I've met along with staff with representatives from both National Grid and Eversource, and they are ready to once we make this allocation and move the money over to them to clear the accounts of those more than 1,000 families that are in utility debt right now. So I think the difference between working through, and I sent the memo that I think did make it through the ARPA email to everyone about this, but the difference is if we put it in the safety net, that's a good thing, but it also requires all of those families individually to reach out to the Brookline Center individually to seek relief, and then the Brookline Center to process individually every single one of those requests. Working through the utilities clears all of that debt, and has the utility companies managing the outreach with their customers rather than the town having to put in the time or nonprofits putting in the time to manage that outreach, and wipes all debt. And so we're sure that we reach all people.
Okay. May I ask a question of my colleague?
Yes, of course.
In the information that you provided, there were 30-day amounts, behind by a 30-day billing period, 60-day and 90-day. Is this to cover everyone who's behind on their by 1 month, everyone who's behind by 2 months, everyone who's behind by 3 months? And second question is, according to the information from the utilities that you shared with us, what percentage of the bills that are behind actually qualify for subsidies according to the utilities' own information?
Right. So there are two categories. They're essentially what they qualify as low income customers that pay a lower rate. And then there are all the rest of us, essentially. Captured in there. It's also notable that the reason you don't see more low income folks in utility debt is because folks in public housing don't pay utilities. Those are included as part of the rent that they pay.
So
they don't pay that separately.
Okay, you know what, guys, I have to stop this discussion because it's just been pointed out to me that this could be an open meeting law violation.
Oh, that's
So
too
here's
bad.
what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make an executive decision here. We're going to keep the 614, 246.82 on here. And then John and Raul, we will discuss it Tuesday at the select board meeting, because then we can have the full discussion without it being in violation.
Well, if I may point out a couple problems with that executive decision as the co-chair of this group.
Yeah.
First of all, I think Brian and Jenny and Arthur deserve a vote. Second of all, I was in the midst of trying to justify adding some things back for which this would pay, and we haven't even talked about this reduction would pay, and we haven't even talked about the virtues of those things that would be added back. And third of all, since we had to cut short the discussion of the percentage of the utility customers who actually qualify for the subsidized rate, it's very low. It's in the single digits. So we'd be talking about $600 some odd thousand in relief for a group within which less than 10% qualify for relief according to the utility.
So John, all I'm suggesting is that we take this discussion to Tuesday where Raul will be able to participate. And yes, we still have to discuss the things that you wanted to add back in, but I don't actually think, yes, I think the committee needs to weigh in on lots of things, but I think this is a select board member's proposal and the select board member will need to take it up. And I think that regardless of what the committee says, it's going to need to be taken up in its full amount on Tuesday because of the issue that it's a select board member's proposal. I see your hand, Jenny. Let me just finish with John and then.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, you want Jenny to go or me?
No, I said, let's just finish unless Jenny, you have specifically to add to this discussion.
I was just going to tell you that I still support the 614,000.
Okay, so
if you're looking for my vote, it remains the same. And I'm glad to explain why more broadly to people participating and to the committee if needed. Thanks.
Go ahead, John.
Can we get to what would be funded if we were to reduce this to 300,000?
So here's my take. Yes, but I just think we put the 614 in and still talk about the things you want to fund. And because then we'll have to find ways to cut in other places, or the select board will have to vote on the larger amount.
Well, I'll leave that to Arthur and to Brian to weigh in on.
Arthur, Brian, Arthur's hand is up. Go ahead, Arthur.
Yeah, I just want, correct me or fill me in. So when a tenant is in the rears with their utilities bill, how does the Brookline Center become involved?
The same question applies to the town administration, which we haven't heard from Melissa yet. How does the town administration get involved?
So I think that this proposal, we did talk with Giselle this past week about the safety net program and how the Brookline Center actually manages that program through BCF. But in terms of the town administering a program and working with the utilities on that, I think the details still would need to be fleshed out. I think that's part of what Mel alluded to in his memo on, grant agreements and specifying who's administering, who's tracking the spending. That does put a burden on staff for that. And so it's something that I think we can continue the conversation on Tuesday in terms of, how it potentially could work.
I'm still confused. When a tenant gets the bill that says that they're in violation for non-payment, does that, excuse me, what does the tenant do? Does the tenant go to the Brookline Center and say, I have this outstanding bill? Does the utilities company go to the Brookline Center and say this tenant is in violation, or is derelict with their payment?
I believe that they apply through the Brookline Center for relief. But in terms of the mechanics of how the utility is paid, I'm not as familiar with the details of how the program is run.
Arthur, I believe to further what Melissa is saying, each individual who is in arrears needs to go and apply for support versus this program, which would kind of blanket pay these bills. Does that answer your question?
Based on the bill that they have received from the Brookline Center, or
no, they get a bill that they have their bill from the utility. Then they have to go to the Brookline Center Foundation and apply for help. And someone should correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody else also told me Giselle is joining. Is Giselle here? Because then she can answer that. Let's see. Not on yet. So hopefully Giselle will join us. Can somebody just tag me in the chat when Giselle joins us, and then we can get that answered for you, Arthur.
Okay.
But the way I understand it is that somebody gets a bill from the utility, then they have to go to the Brookline Center Foundation with their bill and apply for help. But we'll get that.
I'm going to weigh in here on
Brian,
this, if you don't
go
mind,
ahead.
Miriam.
Please.
I think what we're arguing about is whether or not our total number is 300K over or either way. It's going to be over 300K either way, over or under. You guys are going to discuss this on Tuesday. It'll be the match of the century, I'm sure. Frankly, whether or not it's 300K one way or another, I'm fine. So I think we just, let's leave it at 614, safe in the knowledge that you guys will fight about it and our number will not be exactly 20. And I'm okay with that. Whether it's 20.3 or 20.6.
All right, thank you.
That's my thoughts.
Thank you. So the majority of the committee supports keeping the number 614, 246.82 for now.
I'm fine with that.
And Giselle is in the chat, so we can elevate her, Arthur, and get an answer to your question.
Okay. Did she hear my question?
I don't know. We'll ask her when she joins us.
Okay. Okay.
Hang on. I don't actually know. I think somebody just told her to join us. Giselle, we're going to elevate you.
She's here now.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
No problem. Hi.
Hi, Arthur's going to ask his question again. If you don't mind
So-
helping us get an answer.
No. Yes. How does this program work? Does the utilities company go to the tenant, and then the tenant comes to you, and then you in turn cut a check to the tenant, and who in turn gives the check to the utilities company?
Okay, yeah. So I just want to clarify here. We're talking about row 38, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is something that in this moment, the foundation isn't necessarily set up to do. So I'll answer Arthur's question first. So typically what would happen, like for example, the way that the Brookline Center supports utility relief or payments is that we would not give the money to the individuals. We would essentially make the payment to the utility company, right? So the money wouldn't go to individuals, but directly to make the payment.
Okay, do you do any kind of, it's based on what? I mean, is it
The bill.
non-payment? Right, but is it non-payment because they're invalid or they're elderly, or, they've had a bad, they're on furlough, or they've lost their job, whatever?
I mean,
there
it
any
could
kind of
be a variety of
investigation?
reasons, but what I'll say is, I mean, one of the reasons I think I'm not necessarily best positioned to answer the questions is the foundation does not currently provide debt relief. What we do is we would grant the money out to a nonprofit that would do that. And so the way that we've done it in the past is through the Brookline Center. I did have a conversation with Brookline Center leadership yesterday, actually, asking about this particular proposal. And it's not to say that it's not possible. It can be, obviously it can be done. But I think to the scale that I've read the proposal, to the scale that this needs to be done across, I mean, the utility companies have the data around the infrastructure is not currently there for either the BCF or the Brookline Center to just say, great, now we have the money, let's make these payments right away. So we'd have to do some work to be able to be set up to do that. And so
this is a brand new program. This is not an ongoing program.
That's correct.
This is not a submission by BCF or a submission by the Brookline Center. Right. This is not our application.
May I ask Del one question?
Yeah.
Simply this: do we have any kind of a handle on whether any money has been given out, like over the past year, to help people with utility bills?
Yes. So again, the Brookline Center, through their safety net program, does support utility debt relief. I think the numbers, and they're not going to be exact, so please forgive me. But in 2021, I think it was somewhere around $9,000 or $10,000. That was in 2020. In 2021, it's probably similar, maybe a little bit lower. So it's not to these levels, right? Because they're working with individuals that come to them with a variety of needs, and they'll say, here's one need that I have. But this kind of program is town-wide, right? Either people who are 30, 60, 90 days in arrears, but town-wide. And so we have supported utility debt relief, but on a case-by-case, one-off basis with individuals, not to this scale.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giselle. Okay, here's what, I'm gonna do a little time check. It's 3:37. We do need to vote on a slate today. Arthur, your hand is still up. Did you get
I'm sorry, to take it down.
Okay, you have to take it down, but Jenny's hand is up. So I'm just doing a time check here. John still has to explain why he wants to add these three things, but Jenny's hand is up. I'm gonna let Jenny speak, and then we'll go back to you, John, to explain, and we can make a decision as a committee on the three things you want to add. Go ahead,
Thank you.
Jenny.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that we've had this long conversation and got a lot of clarification on the utility debt relief. I think it is basically a way of eliminating debt to a large number of households in Brookline. Not all are low or moderate income. It's people who are potentially going to owe a lot of money come May of this year, so very soon. It is a very quick way of eliminating that debt by giving the money directly to the utility companies. There would not be, that is my preference, to not go through an entire application process. And I think that it also, because it is directly related to COVID, I see this, again, this proposal directly relates to COVID impacts. These are people who haven't made payments since March of 2020. So it is really fundamentally linked. There's also some points in the proposal about different levels of funding. So perhaps when the select board deliberates, you can revisit that and figure out if there's other layers that you wanted to sort of break it down further. But I just wanted to put that clarification back up there, that I do think it relates and I want to keep it there.
Thank you. All right, John, your
Yeah,
three
thank you.
new
Thank you.
additions, please.
Dan, thanks to all who clarified the reality behind this proposal. And since it was decided to just put the decision off to the select board and to go ahead and add the 614, 246, or keep the 614, 246, without regard to the increase it imposed on the bottom line, I would hope that that will not be held against these three remaining proposals. In other words, just because they're going to make that bottom line even bigger should not be held against them. Because we're pretty much saying this is kind of a placeholder for some money to be determined by the select board. So with that said, the three proposals that I would like to get back in, as I say, are one council on aging, one chamber of commerce, and one a new proposal, which is the Black and Brown Club. And the council on aging proposal is you will recall we were short of the full funding of the IT category, the IT bucket. And this is an IT proposal, and it has to do with bringing the virtual meeting, hybrid meeting capabilities of the senior center up to what is required to do hybrid meetings. And hybrid meetings are going to be the future, and no one needs them more than senior citizens, many of whom can't get out to be there in person. And this would improve their capability to do hybrid meetings, and it's a very small amount of money. That's Council on Aging.
Okay, hang on. Let's take them one at a time, John, because we have to, the committee has to go one at a time.
Yeah, well, I like them to think of these things in context, but anyway, go ahead.
So I don't actually have any problem. I think this is, I'm in a total agreement. Brian, Jenny, and Arthur, where do you fall on this? Anybody?
Is it he? Yeah, okay, there it is. So we recommended 0.
We recommended 0, and Bernard also, it looks like Bernard recommended 30,000, which might be a potential compromise.
Well, yeah, this is a pretty
Again,
exact
put it.
number.
Okay, sorry, John.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say it's one of those numbers that if we're going to do it, I think we need to fund it. It's a small number, and it's kind of scaled to what they need to do.
Brian, go ahead.
I'm okay with it. 58. I'm
Jenny, Arthur.
I would be fine with the full amount. I'm looking at the proposal right now. I mean, it's basically, it'd be, I mean, you could remove some of these items potentially, but I think, you know, with older adults, I think their ability to participate is limited, and to give them hybrid options and with updated equipment is a very good thing, especially as we emerge from the pandemic. Not everybody wants to get out and about. So I think it's good, full amount.
Great, thank you. Arthur?
Yes, but I would also ask that at the conclusion of this meeting, I would like to make a statement. I just want us to move forward and, you know, get things to where we can, you know, close the meeting. But before we close the meeting, I want to say something, okay?
Yep. Thank you, Arthur. But Arthur, before or after we vote on the slate?
No, after.
All right. Great. So go ahead and Tyler, it looks like we've got a consensus to add that. All right, John, your next line
And
item.
Thank
What?
you. Thank you to those who supported this. It means a lot to the senior center. And it will mean a lot to our local businesses to see this Chamber of Commerce proposal accepted. Quick context, Chamber had 4 proposals. We funded we funded 1, which is good, but it was only 1 out of 4. The business community, the retail small business community in Brookline is desperately looking for some gesture, some important material sign of support. They need it now. They've been beaten down. They've been beaten down in terms of their bottom line, in terms of everything they've had to do to adjust to COVID over the past 2 years. And they're coming back and they are making a huge contribution to the economic vitality of Brookline. And this was one of their key requests because the restaurants need that boost, that sort of comeback encouragement more than any other sector in the retail economy. And this will help them. We have letters of support for this from restaurants saying this is meaningful. To have this kind of help will actually make a difference to them and their survival.
So I will chime in that I don't disagree, but I would recommend 1 year instead of 2 years, which is half this amount, which as John references, those letters all actually David Gladstone said they would understand if we reduced it to 1 year instead of 2. And then this is another program that we could ask them to come back for phase 2 funding after we see how phase 1 goes.
That seems reasonable to me.
Brian, Jenny, and Arthur. So Tyler, yeah, you got it already. Sorry, my dog is getting. Hi, everybody. This is Nori. I know you all know her. Brian, Jenny, and Arthur, where are you on this list?
Agree. Half for 1 year. This is a good application with, very clear numbers and budget, and breaks it down into 2 years so we can easily see what would be the impact after 1 year.
Yeah,
and revisit
right.
it after the fact.
Perfect. Brian and Arthur?
So
Yep, I agree.
this would be 41,000?
No, it would be 82. That is
And-
half.
oh, that- okay,
Basically
okay.
164.
Yes.
Yes. And Brian?
I agree. Split the baby.
Okay. All right.
Well, please don't say split the-
And Black and Brown Club. All right, John, let's hear it.
Here we go. So I think people are well aware of the application from Black and Brown Club. It's a very, very ambitious application. I think even they would acknowledge that. And I think maybe in part because it was so ambitious and because they are new, they formed in January of this year. We just essentially didn't know how to go forward with it. Arthur and I have had some very fruitful conversations leading to this proposal for $50,000 in what I'm going to call seed money for the Black and Brown Club. I talked to Ade, who I think a lot of people know about this just before the meeting. He thanked me that I was going to offer this proposal. I think he understands the nature of it, that what we mean by seed money is we want them to develop the capability with this money to come back with a proposal in round 2 that will be more focused, more targeted, and more clearly described in terms of how we will be able to measure the impact and the success of whatever it is that is being proposed be done in terms of, be it a mentoring program, a job training program, any number of possibilities. But let's focus it, let's narrow it down, and let's use this $50,000 as seed money.
As a planning grant.
Yes, yes.
And I'm going to go to Arthur first on this one. Arthur, where do you fall on that?
I'm 1000% behind this, okay? And I'll save my comments for last, after we adjourn the meeting, or just before we adjourn the meeting, okay?
Okay, but you are in support of
I'm
John's
in
recommendation.
100% behind this.
100%. Okay. Brian, your hand is up.
Yeah, thanks. I guess I don't disagree at all. And if we can do it, I think we should do it. I guess I seem to remember during the one meeting we discussed this, that there was a sense that the group itself was ineligible for some reason in terms of some technicality, or it lacked certain
Yeah, I can
forms or
address that.
something bureaucratic. So yes, please.
So, and Melissa and Mel and I have discussed this, and this was a part of Mel's memo that I didn't discuss, because basically this is just going to happen, which is all of the grantees will have, all of this will be contingent upon community grant agreements, which is standard, by the way. It's standard. It's what happens with the CBG grants now, the community block grants. I've been in community granting for, I did it for 5 years at Oxfam. Everyone has an agreement. So they're going to have to sign the agreement, and it's going to be up to them to be able to meet the criteria outlined in the agreement. So that's how we're addressing this.
And just so everybody understands, that's not just for Black and Brown.
That's for everybody, right? For every single one.
All of the community-based organizations.
Right. Thank you, John. That's important for all of the community-based organizations. Will have to sign we'll have the, God, the word just flew out of my head.
MOU,
essentially.
Yeah.
And they're also subjected to monitor, there's monitoring involved throughout the years by the town for all of the organizations with, reporting quarterly, and there's a lot of things that gets collected over time. So there will be plenty of checkpoints along the way.
Yeah, I hope that people understand because of this discussion that the granting of these monies, especially where community groups are concerned, does not mean, that tomorrow we write a check and say, good luck, see you around, it's always the town's responsibility, even after these decisions are made. It's always going to be the town's responsibility to track and to answer to federal authorities on the use of the ARPA funds. So in some respects, in a way, it never leaves the town's hands until there is clear guidelines and clear reassurances that it'll be used for the purposes that were described, and that we have a way of monitoring, or the town has a way of monitoring the use and reporting back to the federal government on the use.
Great. Thank you for that, John. Very important note. Okay, Tyler. So it sounds like we have the votes for the 50,000. Tyler, can you show us, drum roll please, what number are we at? Because I have a suggestion about where we can cut some funding. So we're at 21,408. Okay.
That's not too bad.
It's not too bad. Here's my suggestion. Hear me out. Please don't hate me, people in the general public. Please go to the big proposal. Because I think that as much as I love big, and I support big personally, I have a t-shirt, I think they're super important. I just think that if I'm choosing where to spend this money right now, spending it on debt utility relief and some of these other more vulnerable populations just takes priority. So I realized they asked for 6.16. Who reviewed this one? Was it you, Arthur? Oh,
Just
Jenny?
you.
Yes.
Oh, Arthur.
I thought it was me for some reason, but it wasn't.
No, I think it was Arthur.
It was,
So, I just feel like we have two choices, and I think this is our last decision. We can cut 400,000 from this and give them $500,000. And Or we could just leave it like it is, vote on the slate as it is, and at, what are we at, 221.4?
21, yeah, 21.4.
And send, we can send it as 21.4 to the select board, or we can send it at 21 to the select board. So I guess maybe I'm just splitting hairs, but there it is. I kept going through this list thinking about where we might be able to trim something, and that's really the only thing that came up. What are everybody's thoughts?
I've got thoughts, but if Arthur wants to start,
No,
whatever.
go ahead, John. Go ahead, John, please.
I'd
Okay.
also like to offer them too.
Yeah. So I think that the 900,000 is warranted. We should leave it as it is. And I'll explain why. They didn't ask for 6 million because they just wanted to go for the moon and the stars and hope that they got that. No, they asked for $6 million because they are in a position right now where they are of vital use to the town. They are intimately involved in this future of hybrid meetings. They're intimately involved in all things virtual that help us stay connected to one another. They are embedded on the high school campus. They are working with people in the school system on a regular basis. They are employing and training people on a regular basis. They're a sizable organization with significant budgetary needs, and they're one guaranteed, once guaranteed revenue source is in decline because people are cutting the cable and getting saving on their cable bills, but it's costing organizations like BIG funds for their budgets, which come from basically based on the number of cable users in the systems. And in the absence of those funds, with what they already have in place and what they would like to add because of this transition to more use of virtual technology and more hybrid presentations of everything we do. And also what they would like to add in other areas to get even more involved with the community and in the schools. They asked for this ambitious 6 million, and 900,000 barely gives them what they need to still be viable 3 years from now. And so I think we should leave it as it is.
I don't actually disagree. I'm just looking for places to balance our bottom line. Jenny, go ahead. You were next.
The question, I don't know if it's for John or somebody else, but I'm actually not sure what the $900,000 would do. I just went back through their application and it doesn't seem to chip away at any of the 3 categories quite sufficiently. Perhaps the nonprofit social service tech one or community services. But what would happen if we knocked that down even further? Where do you think the funds would go to?
Are you asking me?
I'm not sure.
I think it's a rhetorical question. It's an important rhetorical question.
I'm just not clear. Even in the proposal, it's a $6.1 million proposal. It's very significant. If we knock it down to 900,000, I'm not clear what we're spending money on. And then if we went down even further, where would the funds go? It's just not clear based upon the proposal.
I can, as the one who's been making all the noise about this, if you don't mind, I'll try to answer that.
Please, any clarification is helpful. Thanks.
In case people are wondering why am I, so enthusiastic about keeping this money at 900,000 and why do I, seem very sure of myself on this? It's because I was the select board's designated person to work with BIG on long-range solutions to their problem with the decline in funding from cable fees. And I've had many a conversation with Kathy, the executive director of BIG. And if you think this spreadsheet is complicated and detailed, you should see the spreadsheet she has for their equipment needs, personnel needs, programming needs, and other needs going out for years down the road. I mean, she's really on top of this. And although the application doesn't have an obvious answer to where would the $900,000 go. Kathy, working under an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the town administrator, would be required to show that. And I know she'll have good answers as to how she can use that money.
Okay, thank you. I understand.
All right, thank you. Brian and Arthur.
So I guess we're talking about 450K out of 21.7 million, which is like less than 2%. So I'm fine leaving it at 900.
All right.
I think this is going to get a wholesale remake on Tuesday anyway. So
All right, Arthur, you're the last. Where do you fall?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would like to, give a slash to everybody up and down the line, rather than just putting it on the interactive group,
Okay. I think
Does
that's
that-
fair. I was just looking. I hear everybody. Okay.
All right,
So
do you
Tyler,
understand what I'm saying?
I do, Arthur. I
Yeah.
do. And I think that yeah. Okay.
Everybody should should
Take a hit.
absorb, yeah, right, straight up and down the line.
Yeah. All right. So scroll us on down to the bottom of Q. This is it, folks. 21.408 committee members. Do you want Brian, do you want Tyler to scroll through slowly one more time, or are we prepared to vote on this slate? We want people to scroll through one more time.
All
right.
One more time.
Bring it up to the top. Super slow, Tyler.
I don't know what that means.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, try to avoid the jumping thing.
Yeah, no, it's hard. It wants to lock every time I skip a cell.
I know. Yeah.
And I only have so much finger space on this laptop pad before I have to start over. So
At least you haven't crashed during this meeting. That would have been fun.
don't jinx us. Don't be saying that. All right.
Okay. I didn't say it.
I thought we took the Center Street lot out.
That's something. Oh, is that?
No.
That's something
So
else.
we took
That's
out
something
$300,000, Brian, because
Okay.
that's an earmark.
Thank
I
you.
mean, potentially, sorry.
Just making sure.
No, good to.
Hey, Miriam, do you think we should just explain to people who might be wondering why it became possible to not provide ARPA funds for the 108 Center Street project?
I'll just leave it at that they withdrew their proposal. How about that?
I can
Okay.
read the message from the Housing Advisory Board,
Oh, that'd be great, Jenny. Thank you.
which read, in reviewing its prior recommendations for ARPA funding in support of Hebrew Senior Life affordable housing development at 108 Center Street, including current and near-term availability of alternate resources, the HAB determined that Housing Trust and other non-ARPA funding will be sufficient to meet the 3.375 designated funding for this project. One reason for not utilizing ARPA funds at 108 Center Street is that there are legal complexities when federal tax credits and ARPA funds are used to subsidize the same project. Fully funding this project-ready investment using other available resources like Home CDBG Housing Trust will avoid these legal complexities. And the HAB strongly believes that the fund should be instead used to support the Housing Authority. That was the shortened part on the end.
Thank you. All right, let's keep, we're almost here. We're almost there.
Miriam,
Yeah.
there was one comment in the town administrator's letter to us about sort of overlapping programs like food security and things
Mhm.
of that nature. Did we address that?
We didn't, and I think at this point, I mean, I think it's just something that because to me, there's so much food insecurity, fund it all. But I
Okay.
think at this point, that'll be something that the select board needs to weigh in on.
Okay.
I think
how-
we're also envisioning that with the development of the grant agreements, that there might be some collaboration that kind of comes out of that as well.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks for bringing that up, Jenny. So just keep in mind, all those zeros on the right are actually being funded right now. That's just they're part of that one big grant above.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
101.408. Is this committee prepared to vote on our final recommendation for the select board?
Again, I, I would feel comfortable if, and I'm going to just use the list, a quick list, okay? The Brookline Improvement Coalition,
Mm-hmm.
25,000 below. Brookline Community Foundation, 25,000 below. Women Thriving, $25,000 below.
Oh, you're
The
just
food-
talking about shaving $25,000 off
For-
of all of them.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And tell me where you are.
I mean, Arthur, where I am is I'm comfortable voting on the 21.4 because I think it's close enough. And I think that the select board there's just some things here the select board is just going to have to make decisions on. And so I feel like we're close enough. But let's hear how the rest of the committee feels.
No, I totally understand where you're going with this, Arthur, and I was thinking kind of the same thing. What if we just shave off, in an equitable manner?
Right.
certain
I don't
amount.
I don't want Mel. I don't want. Excuse me. I'm sorry, Jennifer. I don't want Mel to think that we're just dismissing him or ignoring a problem that we're putting on him. Okay, when the responsibility is also on this group to help him make a final decision, as well as the select board.
But then I think maybe we do something like 1% or 2% off of any proposal more than $200,000. Because otherwise, taking 25,000 away from the Women in Thriving program is a big difference between taking $25,000 away from the,
Okay, so where does the 1%? So give me the 1% then.
Well, wait, let's finish this discussion first.
Okay,
So Jen, it looks
okay.
like you still had something to say. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. I've said, but I just don't want Mel
And
to
Brian's-
think
Yeah. No, I hear you. I'm sorry I cut you off, Arthur. I'm sorry.
that's okay. This is just, you heard me. You've heard me.
And Jenny, were you finished? If so, I'll call
I was
Brian.
just going to say, I mean, we have like 3 or 4 items in here that are we don't know the exact number for. One is the schools, one is the utility debt relief, and I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the entire spreadsheet, so I can't remember some of the others. But even the Davis footbridge, I mean, we spent a lot of time on a couple of these, and the housing authority. I think there's a lot of things that could change and shift here based upon the select board's conversation, and I'm okay leaving it where it is today and letting the select board deliberate further on these details based upon the committee's recommendations.
I can't say it any more eloquently than that, so I will just agree with what Jennifer just said.
Okay. I have to say, I feel I'm completely in agreement as well. Arthur, you look like you want to say something again.
No, no.
Okay. So John, where are you? Did we lose John? John? Arthur, is that okay with you? Since the majority of the
So what is that? What's the final decision, or what's
So
on the table?
The 21.408, recognizing that we wanted to get to 20, but also recognizing that this is just our recommendation to the select board. The select board still has to deliberate, and there are still a few big numbers up in the air for the select board to decide.
And Miriam, John is here. I just unintentionally muted myself. Sorry. I want to say I agree with Jenny too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Arthur, we hear
Okay,
you.
yeah, go, yes, go ahead. I
Okay,
mean,
all right. So I'm going to let me see if Melissa or Tyler, you can help me if I get the wording wrong. But I'm going to propose that we vote. Give me an up or down vote, a yay or an nay. Are you in agreement with sending this draft slate to the select board for consideration on Tuesday? Are we in consensus as a committee? Brian, go ahead.
Well, I think we should do this a little more formally. So I was just going to make a
Yeah.
motion to
Please.
accept
Oh,
the
yes.
slate as presented.
I
But
love you. Brian
I'm a
has made a
stickler for
motion
that
to,
kind of stuff.
Brian has made a motion to accept the slate as presented. Do we have a second?
Second,
Great. Let me just roll call vote as I see you on my screen. Brian,
Yes.
Arthur,
yes,
Jenny,
yes.
John,
Yes.
and this co-chair votes yes.
Yay.
Great. Yay, people. All right, we're not
Wow.
quite done yet. We have one last agenda item, which is public comment. And I received a very respectful question asking why we were doing public comment at the end earlier today. And I thought it would be very nice for me to just explain to you that public comment is a time for us to make clarifications and answer questions. And this has been the use of public comment in the chat during the whole review committee. That's why we had a public hearing, and that's why we had the email address. And I will say, please, Tyler will work his hardest to get this slate up onto the website as soon as possible. I think you all know by now we have really worked hard to be very transparent and make this a publicly accessible process that doesn't end today. So Tyler will get that up for everyone to look at. And when and if you have comments on it, please feel free to continue to email the ARPA review brooklinemass.gov email address. We will make sure those get to the select board by Tuesday. And now in this particular case, you can also email directly select board members if you want, because at this point it's up to the select board on Tuesday to make the final choice. We're going to open it up for public comments. Please use the hand raise function if you would like to make a public comment. And Bernard Green is our first raised hand. And I'm going to take Jenny first. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I get to Bernard, I have two things. The first is Jenny's hand is up, and then I promised Arthur a chance to speak. Do you want to do that now, Arthur, or after public
no,
comment?
I'll wait, I'll give other, no, go ahead, because I've
Okay.
been, but I do want to speak. I just, well, put it at the end.
Okay, go ahead, Jenny.
Okay, well, I could have gone at the end then too, but
Oh,
I made a request last Friday with regard to looking at all of the applications through an equity lens and making sure that when we present the information that we are including that. And so since we did not get back to that, for the select board, I would like to make sure that we make that available to everybody to see our slate and weigh it against the evaluation criteria, but particularly around the equity considerations that we had to go through for each proposal that was reviewed.
Thank you, Jenny. And my apologies. I completely forgot about that recommendation, and it's a good one. So hopefully we'll get it done and ready by Tuesday. Thank you. Arthur, we'll come back to you. And
Yes, thank you.
go ahead, Bernard.
Okay, thank you, Miriam. I want to use this opportunity really to speak to the select board, not necessarily just the committee. And
Wait, hang on. I don't think you can, because it's an open meeting law violation.
I'm not asking for any response. I just want to make
Melissa, is that allowed?
Bernard, I would just wait for the Tuesday meeting and, address your board members there. I think that we want to be careful that with 3 select board members on this meeting,
Let-
that we're
let-
not.
Let me advocate for what I wanted to say. In my memorandum, I did suggest that we add $109,431 to the social worker, raising that from part-time to full-time. And I know you've already voted, but I just want to say that I think it's a big mistake not to fund this program, which deals with a devastating impact of the pandemic on seniors.
But
And
see, Bernard, this is the
I-
problem because now if I have to respond and I do need to respond, now we have an open meeting law violation.
Well, you don't have to respond. I would have
Please,
added
please, Bernard,
109,431.
let's take this up on Tuesday, okay?
We will.
All right, I'm going to call on the next person. Thank you. Bob Lepson, your hand is up. We'll elevate you and please allow you to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, folks, for doing all the things that you've been doing over the last several months, the hard work that you've put in. I'm Bob Lepson, town meeting member, precinct 9, also a member of the CDICR. I wanted to just emphasize, and I've expressed this previously, that the allocation that is going to the Davis Avenue footbridge, to me, just does not feel like it belongs to be it shouldn't be funded with ARPA money. It just should not be funded with ARPA money. I understand the importance of it. I understand that it's going to be extremely costly because of dealing with the MBTA and all of that sort of stuff. We need to find other resources to fund that. ARPA money specifically should be used for other purposes, such as Brookline Housing Authority, as an example. The situation at Brookline Housing, and you folks know it well, perhaps not as well as the folks at Brookline Housing actually know it. The conditions that they live in is many of those apartments, it's just unconscionable. And to think about taking money to design a bridge instead of helping people live the way they're in reasonable conditions is unconscionable in my mind. And I just need to emphasize that 1,000%. And please, on Tuesday at the select board meeting, you need to make sure that that this message gets through as well. I will try to be there, but no guarantee. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time and I appreciate you listening. And please, please, please understand the dire nature of what's going on at Brookline Housing versus a footbridge. Please. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to make comments? I'm gonna be Devin here. Oh, Deborah Brown has raised her hand. Deborah, we will elevate you. Please go ahead and make your public comments.
First of all, good afternoon. And sorry, I'm running around a bit. And thank you all for your hard work. I mean, I've been on grant review committees, but I've never been on a grant review committee like this. So I understand the difficulties. And I want to say thank you. I want to echo some about the need to fund Brookline Housing Authority. I mean, and BIC got, I think, 1/6 of, my math is bad. We asked for 6 million, we got 750,000. And you know what? Here's why I was totally okay with that. Because I thought more money would go to BHA. I mean, you really need to go there. BIC's properties are bad. I mean, like sometimes embarrassingly bad. But BHA could break your heart. And there is nothing they can do without the money. This is a once in a lifetime fix, once. And if Michael Alpern and that board have figured out a way to leverage, then Jenny Raitt asked for 10 million And I was crazy enough to think they needed 17 million. So I'm going to wrap up because I know y'all are tired. Again, thank you for all of your hard work. And the issues at BHA are not going to go away. And I know you're going to say, well, the footbridge is consistent with ARPA, but here's the deal. If you read those ARPA regs carefully, when they're talking about bridges and the like, they're talking about places like Detroit. And I've said this before. They are talking about communities, as I like to say, that God and time have forgotten. That's almost where BHA is. Actually, that is where BHA is. So I implore you to help them. I would also request that to the extent that you could move any money over to the small businesses, that would be greatly appreciated. And, you know, thank you for the $750,000. Believe it or not, I was up until 2 o'clock last night with my little chart about how we're going to spend the money. And so I'm excited to do it, and I'm excited to tell you all about it. So have a good weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah, for your comments. David Rockwell has his hand up. David, we will elevate you and you can start with your public comments.
Thank you, Miriam, and thanks to the committee. I want to echo Deborah's thanks to you. It's an unbelievable process you've undertaken in a short amount of time. So, and it has been transparent, and I want to shout out to Tyler for his great in the moment and after the moment Excel work. But I want to also echo Deborah's comments about the Brookline Housing Authority's needs. I thought her comments were quite generous, and she's supporting the BIC application. But we have had, I think you know, we're part of GBIO, a bunch of faith-based organizations in town, and we've had these residents elevate their concerns to us. It is heartrending, as you know. The engineers found $36 million of priority one needs in those two Trustman and Egmont properties. So I just hope you can go beyond 5 million. I just want to echo what Deborah said. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for your comments. At this time, we have 21 attendees and 8 panelists. And Ade, did you mean to put your hand up?
Yes.
Okay, then we will call on Ade, and it looks like Naomi Schweitzer has also gotten in line. So go ahead, Ade, you may speak.
Thank you guys all for letting me speak first, and also I can echo everybody's sentiment of appreciate the hard work you guys do, and also the fact that keeping an open ear, just moving the needle from where we were at last week to this point. I appreciate you guys. But also, I just want to show my support also for the BHA proposal too. We have a lot of members that live in BHA housing, and sooner or later we're going to be helping about bringing the situation to light, because it seems to be we hear about that in town meeting and in public forums a lot about the situation in housing, but people tend not to accept that. When all you have to do is drive by there and you can see, or just go by there, any one of those buildings from Egmont to High Street, and understand the situations that people are living in. So whatever we can do to help them and get our people and actually spend the money where resources is needed, I'm always in support of that. So I appreciate you guys all. Thank you, and hopefully we get some good work done.
Thank you very much for your public comments, Adi. And Naomi, you'll be elevated and you can go ahead and speak.
Thank you. Naomi Schweitzer, town meeting member, precinct 10. I just want to echo the thanks from some of our previous speakers. This has been an intense committee for all of you, many of you as volunteers, and also the staff. This has been a multi-year journey and will continue on into the next rounds, and just really appreciate the transparency and the thoughtfulness and all the time that's gone into this, and all the competing demands that are coming to you. I wanted to comment on a couple of things. Some of the other speakers have already said this, and I would like to amplify the needs at Brookline Housing Authority. I cannot stress how poor the conditions are inside some of these properties. I have been inside them. I have friends that live there. My daughter has friends that live there. And I've also heard from people, neighbors that I don't know who live there, come on bravely to public comment in this process, in the housing production plan process, and in through the focus groups that the BCF ran for ARPA during the community engagement process. I feel like for the first time during this process and the housing production plan process, we have heard directly from multiple tenants of Brookline Housing Authority about how terrible it is and how much deferred maintenance there is in housing situations that I think most of us would never have our own family members live in. These needs need to be prioritized over some other things on this list. As important as all of these things are, there are other things that are literally not about people's immediate lives right now and the health and safety of themselves and their children. There are some things on this list that can wait a bit longer. Please put more money in the Brookline Housing Authority line item. 5 million, 7 million is not enough. There needs to be more. This town says over and over again, we care about affordable housing. If we believe that, now is the time to show it through the dollar amount we are giving to Brookline Housing Authority. I would also like to advocate for full funding of the utility program. This is an opportunity to help people in need with their utility debt without making people who are poor do what they normally have to do, which is a rigmarole of running around to figure out how to get help and providing all kinds of documentation and waiting around and getting further into debt. And when they sometimes still get no, to get the help that they need. This is a way for the town to help a lot of households all at once take care of that debt. This is what this funding was meant for. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. All right, there are 18 attendees and nobody has their hand raised. I am going to close public comment and turn it back to the committee. And I'm going to start with Brian, who has his hand raised.
Thanks. I never want to follow Arthur Conquest. So I'm saying this before.
Arthur, I'm giving Arthur the last word.
I know. And I listen, I want to get in well in advance of him. Because you can't top that guy. I really just want to thank Tyler and Melissa for being with us all the way. I appreciate what you're doing. I've been in the seats that you're in. I am in your seats that you're in many cases, and it is not easy. And especially Tyler, on the fly doing the Excel. Well done, sir. Well done. And just thank you from the bottom of my heart. You made this as easy as it could be to sit in these chairs, and I just wanted to appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know what this is, Tyler? They do it in the school. It means same. I agree. All right, John. Thank you, Brian. Let's try to wrap up in the next 3 minutes, folks.
I'm with Brian on not wanting to follow Arthur, so that's why I'm raising my hand now. I want to thank everyone from the community who applied. They've been terrific. They've been patient. They've been grateful to a committee that, frankly, has sometimes felt a little overwhelmed by the task at hand. I've heard people on this committee say they're losing sleep at night. You didn't have to acknowledge. And you're not the only one, by the way. So I hope we did our work well. I'm pretty pleased with the work we've done so far, and you'll be hearing from me again at the select board meeting. I guess some people are saying, please, no, but yeah, you'll be hearing from me again at the select board meeting. I hope people understand, those especially who, along with me, feel so deeply the needs of the Brookline Housing Authority, because those needs are every bit as severe and as grave as has been described by people here today. And what they need to also understand is, if not for ARPA money, who knows if we'd be having this discussion? Because instead of arguing over whether we should spend $5 million of ARPA money on the BHA projects or $7 million or $9 million, and take it from, some of the other ARPA applicants, we would be talking about, should we be spending $7 million and take it out of the schools? Should we be spending $7 million and taking it out of the health department budget, or the police department budget, or the, you name it budget? The town, as a general rule, is not able to do what it's doing in this process, except when things like ARPA money come along. Thank goodness it did come along. Shame on the state, and I can't emphasize that enough. Shame, shame, shame on the state for having allowed state-operated, state-responsible BHA housing and public housing all over Massachusetts. It's not just Brookline, through years and years and years of neglect, to decline to the condition that they are in now. So with any good fortune at all, this will be the beginning of a process whereby we all who are not angry now take our message to the state as well, because they are the #1 partner in this, and they are #1 in having neglected the needs and having abandoned a responsibility which it was not theirs to abandon, but they abandoned it. And we got to turn it around. And I think people did a good job of sending a message through the ARPA process. So good for us. And finally, to my co-chair, thank you for the way you conducted these meetings. I gotta say, you made it so much easier for me, because I just said, Miriam's got this, and Miriam had it. She's had it from day one, and she has it right now. So I'm turning it back to you, Miriam.
Thank you, John. All right, I promised Arthur, thank you, John. I promised Arthur the last word, and I'm going to give it to him. So I'm just going to say happy Passover, Chag Sameach, happy Easter, right? It's Easter this weekend. Can you tell which holiday I celebrate? It's Good Friday. Happy Good Friday. Ramadan Mubarak. It's all the spring holidays. And to those atheists, have a fabulous weekend. And Arthur, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. First thing, a salute to Jackie Roosevelt Robinson. Okay. Number 42. Okay. And a great American, and the National Baseball Association salutes, okay, his breaking the color line in 1947. And I just wanted to make that second thing. I want to thank Miriam, and I want to thank John for giving me this opportunity. All right, I was shocked when they asked me to be a member of this, and in particular, John has been there night and day for me. Okay, to 6 o'clock in the morning, I send him one of my emails. 3 o'clock in the morning, I send him one of my emails telling him that I haven't slept, about 2 hours or whatever. And then I also want to thank Melissa and Tyler. Seriously, top shelf. They've been there for me. Okay, what do I know? Okay, and they have answered every single question and taken my phone calls every single time. And I want to personally, publicly thank you for that. Now, let me get to the uncomfortable part. We just had to settle a lawsuit with Gerald Alston for some very ugly stuff that we've been watching and experiencing for over 10 years. We have got to get in front of this. It's still here. Okay, and we try to ignore it. Okay, we try and sweep it under the rug. There has never been a Black individual receiving a grant, okay, from the Brookline Community Fund. Maybe one, okay, but talk about a vulnerable population. Okay, I'm blessed. Okay, someone gave me a house in Brookline. And I, you know, am living on the good side of the street. That's not the case with 50% of the Black population in this town that are living in the same public housing that Naomi just talked about how miserable and dilapidated they are. But we need to allow Black people to be an integral part of this community. All right. I got involved only because why should my son go from the elementary school to the high school and be placed in a standard or basic class? Why should, and this is going to make people a little uncomfortable, if a Black person or a Latino person has the means to join the country club, and I'll use Duval Patrick, you know, give them a fair shake. The fact that I challenge that, okay, actually has people disliking me. You'll send my father to fight in Europe, send my brother to fight in Vietnam, send my nieces and nephews to fight for freedom, okay, in Iraq and Iran and so on and so forth, but you won't address the issue of us being second-class citizens in this country and in this town. You want us to, okay, last thing, I promise you, last thing. The guy from South Carolina, Black man, what's his, the senator from South Carolina? Anybody? The fact that he voted against Ketanji Brown is a national disgrace. We have got to do better. And in this town in particular, please, I'm not a ugly person. I purposely control my temper, okay, because a lieutenant in the police department said to me, you know, Arthur, your color is a weapon. People are frightened just of your color. So I tone whatever I do or have to say down 3 notches. But we have got to change how we interact with Black people, especially our children. Racism kills. All right, I'm lucky, I'm blessed. But that doesn't mean that everybody has my skills and my energy to be able to fight you and to fight for what I believe is right. I just, please, and I thank all of you, okay, for sticking in there with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arthur. No arguments from me.
Thanks, Arthur.
On that, I will close this meeting. Please put on your calendar May 6th at 2 p.m. for our next meeting. We'll be discussing how to do this better next time. I mean, we knew it was perfect, right? But no, okay. So May 6th, 2 p.m. And please email me if for some reason you can't make that, and then we'll adjust. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.